Yeah, thank you. So I wanted to start with forel is, I had a comment years ago, being in a forel orchard, that forel is the best pear there is because nobody steals it off a tree because it's so ugly to eat. But then there's now two presentations, one that said it's got red spider mite, and the other one it said they've got polyphagous shottle borer, so I'm not sure if it's the best pear or cultivar anymore. Anyway, but it was at times a pleasure working with it and other times not. Okay, so just to get a recap why it falls into the quality management, I mean, it's a very old cultivar. So when we go to what's normal for forel, it was harvested and there's a mandatory 12-week cold storage period before it can go into the market. And that's mainly for the mealiness and the stringency issues that it has. Okay, so the issue with that is that there's a break in your bicolor pear supply. So that is before the FEMA time, so there's a market loss with our bicolor market, so our exporters on South Africa can't regain that market. So then Dr. Ian Crouch came with our FEMA idea, which is a forel early market access. So what that meant, it was instead of harvesting the fruit at a certain maturity when it was released, we hang it for 2 to 3 weeks longer. So it needs to reach 6 kilogram firmness at least and a 14% sugar. But then it overcame that astringency issue that we had. Okay, so that fruit is then treated with 1 MCP, it's packed and it's shipped. So it's usually a lot shorter period. It's quicker in the market and we can regain, from a South African perspective, we can keep on supplying bicolor pears to the market from right early on the rosemaries, flamingos, FEMA, and then on with normal forel. Okay, so so with a new program or a new cultivar, if one can put it that way, there comes new issues. So in the last 9-10 years that I've been at Experica, I've been involved with about 7 forel trials, which all is directly or indirectly linked to the FEMA program. Before my time, before I started there was already, I think, 2 or 3 on FEMA. Okay, so the most recent ones, so I only have 10 minutes, so I can only talk about 2, was on the release criteria. So there's some orchards that, and I emphasize some orchards, not a lot, that just don't make that firmness cut. So the firmness will linger at about 6.2, 6.3, 6.4 kilogram. They got a sugar that's skyrocketing, or vice versa. The firmness drops even lower than 5.5, down to 5.2, 5 kilograms, but the sugar sits at 13%, doesn't reach the required 14%. So is there a adjusted recipe? Can there be a bit of a compromise somewhere? Okay, so that's one project. The second project was on acidity. So in 2019 season, there was unusually low acidity levels in FEMA forel specifically, and there was a bit of concerns about first the storability. We know that acid is important for storage, and that there might be a poor taste in your pears. Okay, so my question is, does it really? So we'll check in the results. Okay, so both of these trials followed basically the same methodology. The criteria for the orchard was a bit different. So we harvested fruit, we treated them, the FEMA rates 1 MCP, stored it for 6 weeks at minus 0.5, had a MI evaluation after storage, after shelf life. Okay, so for the one trial, we had a taste assessment where I orchestrated it myself. I had a bit of insights from people that knows a bit more. And then for the acid trial, we pulled in the big guns, and that's Department of Food Science. So they facilitated the descriptive sensory analysis. So what that means is they've got a panel, they take one pear, everyone takes a piece, and they decide this firmness is, or this crispness is a 7 out of 10, or this sugar is a 5 out of 10. So they calibrate each other. And then a consumer analysis is basically, they will take a group of people like us and they give you a pair and you just rate it. Okay, so that was with the acid trial. So with the firmness and the sugar trial, the orchards we selected was basically, it was FEMA sugar, but not the firmness, or it was FEMA firmness, but not the sugar was not there. And that we compared to FEMA orchards. Okay, so we did it for 3 seasons, 15 orchards a season, in both growing regions. And then with the acid trial, also 15 orchards. All of it was FEMA orchards, but we tried to get a variety of acid levels across the orchards we selected. Okay, so we've measured a lot of maturity parameters at harvest. I think most of us know it. So the main thing was the firmness, sugars, acid. So after storage, we measured it again, firmness, sugars, acids, look at green color, any defects, and we try to link the acid with the storability. Is there a significant drop in firmness? Is there any break in color? Is there any weird disorders coming out? Okay, so that was to look at the storability part of the acids. And then with the taste panels and the in-house taste and the consumer analysis, we tried to look at all of the maturity parameters at harvest, but focusing mainly on your firmness, sugars, and acids, and how does that correlate with your taste parameters. Okay, so my key results, I'm not going to show you fancy graphs, it's just confusing. With the revision of the FEMA release criteria, so focusing on the sugars and firmness, and remember this is orchards that got firmness is like 6.5 kilogram, 6.3 kilogram. It's not a FEMA orchard, and then it's orchards that have too low sugars, so it's not a 15% sugar. It's got a 6 kilogram or 5.8 kilogram firmness, but then the sugars are 13, 12%, 11%. Okay. So we found that flesh firmness definitely have an impact on taste. TSS didn't really have a significant impact. We did notice that below 13% fruit started to go down in terms of taste rating. The acidity, there was a significant negative correlation. So high acidity also correlated with poor overall taste. Okay, then with the acid trial, overall taste was negatively associated with acidity, so it basically confirmed what we found in the first trial. Fibrousness is a term that Department of Food Science, they came up with, so a higher rating was a negative rating, so it's almost like a sensation of fibers in your mouth. So higher acid was correlated with that more to that sensation. Okay, and then also with juiciness, high acidity, lower juiciness sensation. Okay, so what's the concluding note? So with the FEMA release criteria still stands as it is, and that's 95% plus orchards falling into the FEMA program still falls into that. What we've suggested or what we found is that when there's compromise on the one, then should, like let's say on your firmness, then there should be, the sugar should be there, but then the acid should be at a lower level. So it speaks to maturity. If you've got too high acidity and you've got too high firmness, but your sugars is there, it still speaks to a fruit that's not mature enough for your FEMA program. And the same when it comes to your sugars. Okay. Very important is always to monitor fruit color. If your fruit color starts to break, if you go above 3, you can't undo that. If you've got a yellow fruit, you can't make it green again. So one needs to rather harvest it and keep it in a normal program than go for a FEMA, because the yellow fruit is not going to make it over the water. The soft fruit is not going to make it over the water. Okay. And then a final note on that is that the Rural Producers Association, they've got the final say on the release criteria. So, and they are protecting a very unique brand that's ours, that's South African. Okay, so on the acidity trial, we know it's important for storability. We know it has a significant effect on taste, but remember FEMA is ripe and ready to eat. And it's still a pear, so it's sensitive to 1 MCP. So it's a short storage period, so there's limited time for it to ripen. So is high acidity at harvest for a FEMA pear necessary? I guess my results show not. Okay, so thanks Expedico staff. We did over about 90 orchards for these 2 trials. Hortgrow for funding, Hortec that helped me with finding orchards, and then Erika Mulig at Department of Food Science and all the producers. I've seen some of you here open to our R&D, and then all the industry colleagues that had to taste the ugly for pears. So thank you.